Last Thursday morning, Maria Avdeeva was awoken by the sound of her home being attacked. She rushed to pack a bag, ready to evacuate, but she ultimately decided to hunker down in her home in the eastern Ukrainian city of Kharkiv. She later told Al Jazeera, quote, "My mission had become clear to me. Instead of leaving, I had to stay in Kharkiv for as long as I could and become a source of information." What you're watching is Maria's own video. Yesterday, she documented the aftermath of Russia's bombardment of Kharkiv, where attacks on the city's center killed dozens of civilians and injured hundreds. President Zelensky has said the indiscriminate shelling is a war crime and amounts to terrorism. Maria Avdeeva is a research director at the European Expert Association. She joins us now from Ukraine. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
Right. And so, Maria, can you tell us what you're hearing? What is it like to be in Kharkiv now? How often are you hearing explosions?
So the last 2 days are especially intensive. I think that the major challenge since the war started last Thursday, and the challenge from Greta missile system happens probably every 20 minutes. So it's like a distant and sometimes closer, very loud explosions going one by one, like you hear it's in a constant noise and on a very low latitude. And then when Russia uses rockets, and they did use it today, so they launched a rocket on the main administration building in Kharkiv, which is situated right in the city center. So it was like a very big explosion when your windows are thundering, and you feel that that in the air that tremble. And so the building is now completely destroyed. And I now hear the bells on the churches are ringing, and the latest reports say that they are again launching a Grad missile system on residential areas. And there is a church near that district, which is so I can hear that because it's probably 2 kilometers from where I live. So the two houses are completely destroyed, and they are on the fire, because that's our old buildings, and so people are hiding in the shelters, in the basements, everywhere. So some of them are now locked at their locations where they have been for several days already, not being able to go out and get anything, any food, medicine, supplies, nothing.
And have your neighbors, of the other people in your area, are they evacuating, or is there a lot of people staying where they are like you are?
Many people are staying. There are two main reasons for that. For example, where I live, there is a family with 2 small children. I have spoken to them yesterday, and they said they don't have any place to go. That here is their home. So every time they hear the shelling goes, they go downstairs to the basement and sit there. Children sleep there. So they are hoping that Russia will stop some moment. But for now, it looks like Putin is going to take the whole 1.5 million city as hostages, because it looks like he is blockading the city, because already there is no supplies of food to the city, no bread supplies, especially medical supplies are really important. So we are now here on the verge of the humanitarian crisis, which could happen any moment, because now we have reports that Russia is targeting specifically critical infrastructure, water supplies, gas supplies, and that kind of thing. So it is about Celsius zero here, so it's pretty cold outside, and some houses are already without heating, and that it is going to be even more hard in the nearest days.
I'm also curious, how do you sleep at night? Do you like knowing that there are hearing bombs every 20 minutes, but also knowing that at any moment one could strike? Do you have a basement? And how are most people getting through the night?
I think that most of the people do sleep in basements, especially the families with small children. I myself sleep with the clothes on, and I have a dog near my bed. So I'm hoping if the shellings in my area start, so where I live, so I will have that 4 minutes to go down to the basement. But of course, you are never sure because it could happen any moment, like it happened today with the rocket. It was like several seconds, and that was done. So of course you cannot feel secure, and even in the basement, because if the now when this administrative building was ruined today, I told you about, the people are still underneath, and there are already 8 people dead found there in the destroyed building, and there will be more found. So well, you cannot feel secure here anymore in Ukraine, in any town, because Russia is launching missiles not only to Kharkiv but to other big cities and throughout Ukraine, even the cities which are located like in the central Ukraine. They use already missiles from the territory of Belarus, which is to the north of Ukraine, to cover that regions of Ukraine as well, and there are casualties there as well. But of course, Kharkiv is of a special attention and a special like goal for Putin, because it is the second largest city, and it has a strategic location. And it is really close to the Russian border. So that means that Russia will try to get control over the city.
Maria, you're obviously passionate about providing real, unfiltered reporting on the invasion, and you've supported a social media ban on Russian state-affiliated media. So we've covered on this show some platforms like Facebook and Twitter are taking steps to limit content from those sources. Can you tell us more about why you think that's a good idea?
I have been researching Russian disinformation campaign since 2014. And I know how Russia uses disinformation then to combine is with on-the-ground military action, because they have already did it 8 years ago. And what we see now is the major disinformation campaign I have ever seen. So they have been preparing for it since the mass trooping started late October last year. And before the initial war started, Russia was doing all kinds of fake videos and disinformation messages you can only imagine. And the aim of that was to portray Ukraine with our allies and partners as an aggressor who is preparing some kind of offensive against Russia. And they still do that. So if you will open Russian media now, you will see that there is a military censorship. So they do not give any information about losses among their personnel and the weapons. And also, they are again claiming that West and NATO, and especially the US, are using Ukraine to attack Russia. So they now claim that Russia has to protect itself, because any moment, an attack from the Ukrainian territory on Russia can happen. And that voice it. And what is especially threatening? They were talking about Ukraine preparing to use a dirty nuclear bomb on Russia. And that means that Russia needs to put their nuclear weapons on high alert. So they are using disinformation to create this pretext. And what we could see, we possibly could see some kind of false operation, false flag operation, when they would stage something. They would stage the losses among civilians, so stage some kind of provocation with losses among civilians, and then claim that it was Ukraine or Ukraine and Ukrainian partners doing that. And now Russia will have to respond with all weapons they have. So that is really threatening. And I see it now, this campaign going on in Russian media, and they use all the platforms they have. Especially that is presented in Telegram, the messenger app, very popular in Russia and in Ukraine. But also they post the same messages on Twitter, on YouTube, on Facebook. When I go out on Twitter and post the evidences of Russian war crimes, which I have seen with my own eyes, I've got lots of comments underneath, from Russia supporters who say that it is all staged and Ukraine does it by itself. Now they're claiming that Ukraine is shelling its own citizens to accuse Russia. So you take Goebbels from Hitler time of the World War II, and that will be what now Russian media looks like.
Yeah, Russian media talking about a potential Ukrainian dirty nuclear bomb certainly is extremely concerning, because it does sound like some type of pretext. What's your sense of how far out from Kharkiv the Russian forces are at this point?
Well, they are very close, so they are on the border of the city itself, because Kharkiv is 40 kilometers from the Russian border, and they made that 40 kilometers at the first day and were stopped by Ukrainian military at the border of the city. And a couple of days ago, they tried to break through to the city center using light military vehicles in several groups. They were coming from 3 directions, and so they got pretty far into the center. And Ukrainian military, together with territorial defense unit, they managed to stop them. It took about probably up to 4 hours, and then there were street fights when you could hear the shootings on the street and the explosions, and everyone had to stay home because so we had the message that there is now a special operation going on the streets, because some of the Russian soldiers escaped, and the special forces and the military were searching for them and looking for the places where they could potentially hide. Because also what we now understand is that Russia could also use saboteurs, because, for example, in Kyiv, they changed their clothes to Ukrainian military uniform and tried to get into the city like Ukrainian military. And also they use, for example, medical cars to get into the city, all kinds of cover operations you could imagine.
Well, Maria, we really appreciate you talking with us about all of this. Stay safe, and best of luck to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the possibility. Bye-bye.
Thank you. We'll be back with more Rising right after this. Stay with us.